Hi, this is part two of career assessment with a focus on ONET. Just like with part one, our objective here is to center on the importance of self-assessment. Now, that's a critical part of the job search. Our goal by the end of the session is for you to be able to effectively conduct a self-assessment using ONET and a few of the other websites of the U.S. Department of Labor to consider all of the positions that you qualify for, and not just the one that you've held most recently. Now, each of the websites that we're going to explore today will be free, no registration necessary. I'm going to cover a lot of ground too, so please think of this as a very broad overview. My name is Brendan Schneider. I created this webinar for Mass Hire Metro North Career Center, Action for Boston Community Development. Please request permission of use and cite this as a source document if adapted or used as a handout of any type. Now, as you'll see in a second, most of our time in this session will be spent exploring three interrelated websites. Career Assessment Focus on ONET Part 1 is also on our YouTube channel, and though it's not exactly a prerequisite to this session, it does serve as a good base since I explore ONET's summary report in depth. Now, here's what we'll be covering in today's session. We'll be making the case for assessments, another introduction to the platform of ONET. We'll be using ONET's crosswalk search. We'll be finding an occupation through Job Family, finding an occupation through Hot Technology. We'll take a look at My Next Move, which is another online arm of the U.S. Department of Labor. And we'll take a look at My Skills, My Future, another online presence of the U.S. Department of Labor. So, assessments. A career assessment is your starting point. In our lives, we go around this career track, if you will, and an assessment is lapping the starting line. In a sense, it's starting over, but really, it's more of a recentering to determine where and how you wish to run your career this time around. Before you can start out, you have to take stock of your skills, your passion, your forward trajectory, and go from there. And this thought process is especially necessary now. At the Career Center, we've heard from a lot of job seekers, and many out there believe that they're headed back to the job that they were furloughed from, maybe even the job that they were temporarily laid off from. But what if you're not? I mean, what if they decide to not bring you back? As a job seeker, you could take a big lesson from the early days of COVID-19. There's an article on jabatical.com written by content strategist Maria Lamp. And here's that URL. Now, it's since been updated, but the original version of the article stated that in mid-March, that's March 2020, just after the pandemic hit here in the States, 3.3 million Americans filed for unemployment in just 1 week. That was the biggest spike on record until 6.6 million more filed the following week. Then there was an article in Business Insider written by Taylor Borden and Alana Akhtar, and here's that URL. They pointed to a number of giant organizations out there that were experiencing massive layoffs. Among them, Hertz, which laid off 10,000 people on April 20th of that year. According to Forbes, that was out of 29,000 in its North American division. Airbnb, another household name, on May 5th, 2020, Airbnb announced a reduction of 1,900 of its staff. That's 25% of its employees. According to their own website, they had 7,500 employees. Then there's Uber. On May 18th of that year, just a few weeks after Uber announced that it was eliminating 3,700 jobs, which was 14% of its workforce, their CEO announced an additional 3,000 cut jobs and closure of 45 offices. IBM, which on May 22nd of that year laid off several thousand workers. Chevron, which on May 27th cut 10 to 15% of its 45,000 global workforce. Now, I read on Bloomberg that was about 6,000 employees. Boeing, that same week, Boeing laid off 7,000 people due to reduced demand in air travel. And finally, on Wednesday, June 17th of 2020, Boston.com stated that the Peabody Essex Museum, right over in Salem, was laying off 15% of its staff. And this was directly related to financial issues brought about by the pandemic. If so many of these big name organizations can shed so many positions so quickly. You, as the job seeker, well, you have to protect yourself, right? I mean, your childcare arrangements, your mortgage payments, money for food. And the best way that you can do that is knowing all of the skills at your disposal, all of the accomplishments that will successfully propel you into the next position, whether it's the one that you had a few months ago or a headfirst jump into a completely different pool, but not a pool where you'd be out of your depth. No, it would actually work out. And that is the intriguing thing about career assessments. It's like there's a hypothetical employer out there asking, well, what else can you do? Assessments answer that question, and ONET can really help us get there. So, what I'm going to do right now is jump over to ONET. I'm going to jump online. onetonline.org. And here we are. The Occupational Information Network Online, or its acronym ONET, is an online presence of the U.S. Department of Labor. It's one of three. It was designed to help job seekers find positions out there that call for their skills, their interest, their experience. There are over 900 occupations listed in their database. Taken from the site, the data collection is designed to provide data that are valid, reliable, current, and regularly updated. Now, they pull from multiple sources, including surveys and the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS. And what we're looking at here is the first screen of ONET. This is where you can perform an occupation keyword search right in the upper right, up here where it reads electrician as an example. So, for example, if you wanted to pull a summary report on an electrician showing the knowledge, skills, trends, and salary ranges associated with that position type, you would type in electrician here and press go. But for now, I want to go to another part of the website called the crosswalk search right here. And you click this drop down. Okay, so let's say you've got an experience in an industry that uses a particular classification system for job titles. This search allows you to enter the codes from various industries out there to find job titles that parallel what you've been doing. And as you can see from this drop down, ONET works with 7 different classification systems. We're starting out with the U.S. military, then we've got education, more particularly the CIP, or the classification of instructional programs developed by the U.S. Department of Education. The Occupation Handbook, or the Occupational Outlook Handbook, otherwise known as OOH, from the U.S. Department of Labor. There's the SOC. So SOC stands for Standard Occupational Classification Number, which is what ONET uses, as you would see if you performed an occupation keyword search. If you ever contacted the U.S. Department of Labor and asked about a particular position in this database, one of the first questions they would ask is what the SOC code is. And we'll see examples of that in real time in a second. Then there's the DOT. The DOT stands for Dictionary of Occupational Titles, which is actually an obsolete publication. But the job titles themselves are still out there, and you can go to your local library and thumb through previous editions of the book. RAPIDS stands for Registered Apprenticeship Partners Information Data System. And then there's ESCO, which stands for European Skills, Competencies, Qualifications, and Occupations. So as an occupation, I'd like to take, as an example, rather, let's take a look at military codes. So you'd click military right here, and you would see this screen here. So ONET provides crosswalk searches for all 6 branches of the U.S. military, as we see here on screen: Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Marine Corps, Navy, and Space Force. So let's say you've been with the Navy in surface warfare, and you're now re-entering civilian life. Professionally, you'll want to assess how your existing skills mesh with the non-military options out there. So you would select Navy from the drop down, and then you would you'd put in the code specific to surface warfare. I know that's 111. You can also type in surface warfare here, but you can put in the code and then press go. And what we're looking at here are all of the, so we're going to click on surface warfare right here. Okay, so these are the position types in the ONET database whose duties, tasks, personality types, work activities that have anything to do with surface warfare in the Navy. So you could click any of these position types to drill down to a summary report and begin to assess whether or not the position feels like a good fit moving forward from your time in surface warfare in the U.S. Navy. More on summary reports in a second. The next thing I'd like to do is explore finding an occupation through a large grouping. So we're going to scroll up here through Find Occupations. On the job search, we often wish to stay in the same business sector, industry, or field, but point our career trajectory toward a different position within that field. So it's helpful to see positions in a group or a family to assess which position would make sense as a next step or a new job. ONET has a few different groupings, as you can see here. So we're starting out with Bright Outlook. These are the jobs which are projected to have a large number of vacancies over the course of the next decade. You'd see an icon of a sun next to these. The next one down, Career Cluster, it's meant mostly for students and education plans. We're going to hit hot technology in a second. Industry. Industry is a listing of occupations based on the percentage of workers who are actually employed in that industry. And really, any of these could be used for job search. Personally, for career assessment, I like to cast as wide a net as possible. So consider job family right here. We're going to select that. This is for groups of occupations based on work performed, skills, education, training, and credentials. So if we hit this little caret here, we'll see those groupings. There are 23 job families to choose from. So with that number, we are casting that wide net. So let's say I've most recently had a position in arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media. I would click here and then click go. This is to see what else I can qualify for within that family. And here's what we have. These are the position types to choose from within that family. Just dozens and dozens. And note the suns. I mentioned this a second ago. The sun means that these particular positions have a bright outlook. Per ONET, they, quote, are expected to grow rapidly in the next several years, will have large numbers of job openings, or are new and emerging occupations. So as we saw a second ago, you can also search by Bright Outlook under the Find Occupations menu. But back to finding an occupation through job family. I could click any one of these position types for a summary report of what that position entails. As an example, let's say I clicked on camera operators right here. Now, as I go over in Career Assessment Part 1, a summary report pops up, which is what we see here on screen. And it paints a superb picture of that position type. And among other pieces of just simply solid gold data, you'd find the skills that one needs to execute the position and activities, the preparation that one would need, apprenticeship opportunities, skills, knowledge, education, abilities that one would need, personality type that one would need, and wages and employment trends, both nationally and regionally. Followed, of course, by job openings on the web. Again, there's a lot more to summary reports. Even if we continued to scroll down, we'd see professional associations connected to this position type. Couldn't you contact these for informational interviews? Absolutely, to find out even more information about that position type. As I mentioned, we get into summary reports in depth and career assessment focus on ONET Part 1, also featured on our YouTube channel. So feel free to jump over to that one to get this particular summary report in more depth. Another great search on ONET allows you to find an occupation through hot technology. So this bottom bar reflects the top bar. We can go to find occupations and we can go to hot technology right here. On ONET, hot technology is tech that you often see in job descriptions. Now, from an assessment standpoint, we can use it to search for jobs that are using that particular type of tech. So let's say you love using Microsoft PowerPoint. You can type Microsoft PowerPoint in this field here, or you can click on it right here. So let's do that. And now what we see are hundreds of positions that call for that type of technology, call for the knowledge of that type of technology. We're going to get into Job Zone in a little bit. You'll note the suns again, but now we also have these in-demand symbols off to the left here. The in-demand skill, the skill is considered in demand for the occupation if it is mentioned in 5% or more of the occupation's employer job postings. So according to ONET, PowerPoint is appearing frequently in many of these positions that are also bright sun positions. Now, the next step, of course, would be to click on a position type to see what other parts of the position match your career trajectory. Since this is always all about the match, and I'd like you to copy that word down, match. That's the most important word with job search, to see how much of a match you are and explain that and detail that to the potential employer. Now, if you're like me and you sometimes need help, you can go up here to the help menu and look anything up through ONET's help function. You just scroll up to the top of the screen and you can click on help and then say online help, and you'll be taken to the page that covers assistance for that. Now, at the top of the session, I mentioned that ONET was a web presence of the U.S. Department of Labor, and there are two more sites from the DOL that I want to cover here. And think of them as siblings to ONET, using a lot of the same language and symbols, but with a different layout. The first is My Next Move. We're going to go there next. And here we are at My Next Move. Welcome tonight in My Next Move. With My Next Move, we're looking at the same data as ONET, but the presentation of that data, as I mentioned, is a little easier to navigate. And this is the home screen of My Next Move. My Next Move. We've got three choices of travel here. We can search by keyword, we can search by industry, or this third option if you really have no idea what you want to do next. We're going to explore each of these right now. For our purposes here, for keyword, a keyword is a main descriptor of something that we like as job seekers or a skill our target employers are looking for. From a career search standpoint, we would put any word or group of words in here that relate to where we wish to go professionally. And I would recommend that when you're starting out, stick with something general here. Cast that wide net and whittle it down as you go. So let's say you're really interested in a career with an airline, or maybe you were working for an airline and got laid off and you want to see what else is out there that's related to what you were doing. We can put in that single word. We can put in airline and then press the arrow. So these are the position types in their database that have anything to do with the word airline. We consider our old friends, the Bright Outlook Suns, indicating big growth with those position types over the next few years. The next step would be to explore any of these positions to see what each entail, just like with ONET earlier. So let's go with air traffic controllers. Note there isn't a bright sun next to air traffic controllers. So what we have here is a word cloud, keywords associated with that position type. There's a video here that you can play. You've got some alias job titles, what they do, on the job, what you can expect to do, followed by the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that one would need to perform at an average level for that position, the personality type that excels at this position type, the technology that you can expect to use, the education. Now, note the job outlook. We don't have a bright sun here. We have a cloud in front of the sun, so new opportunities are likely in the future. And we've also got the national salary low end, high end, and average. Here are some other position types that are associated with the search that we did. And we can also find jobs in our area. Now, this is a good starting point, but I always recommend that you cross-reference any information you find in a single source with other sources out there. And a few of my resources that I go to are glassdoor.com, theladders.com, and CareerBliss. I also want to point out that the salary range that we're looking at here is the national range. Salary is often dictated by the area of the country that you're in. So an air traffic controller in the Boston metro area would be paid differently than, say, an air traffic controller down in New York or up in Maine or, say, Flagstaff, Arizona. And you can see even more details jumping back to ONET down here. Back on the home screen, we're going to click the logo. And we've got this middle section right here where we can search positions by industry. Here's that drop down. Let's go with utilities for an industry. And here's what we've got. Now we've got a new symbol here, the icon legend, indicating where they work. We can see that 77% of all nuclear power reactor operators work in utilities, and 31% of all wind turbine service technicians work in utilities. And if we clicked on one of these position types here, we would see a similar profile as we did before with the air traffic controller position. So you could see the position in more granular detail. Again, going at that match now from a different starting off point, from the industry starting off point, the business sector starting off point. Jumping back to that first screen, we've got our third option of travel right here. Discover your interests. So let's take a look at this before we jump to our last website of the session today. This is the ONET Interest Profiler. I'll give you a second to read through this. You can pause it. And then I'm going to click next. Here's that next screen. The idea here is you're trying to think about whether or not you have the educational chops. Don't think about income either at this stage. It's an assessment. And with assessments, we follow our gut, just asking, can I see myself doing this or not? And that's it. So here we are. We have the first screen here. Build kitchen cabinets. In my personal opinion, I don't want to do that at all. Same thing with lay brick or tile. I'm only a little bit more interested in developing a new medicine and study ways to reduce water pollution. Maybe. Write books or plays, on the other hand, yes, absolutely. Play a musical instrument? Sure, I'd love to do that. Teach an individual an exercise routine? Maybe that's a maybe. Help people with personal or emotional problems. I'm in workforce development. I think it would depend on what the personal problem is, so I'm going to click maybe. Buy and sell stocks and bonds? I don't think so. Manage a retail store? Not for me. Develop a spreadsheet using computer software? Only a little bit more interested. Proofread records or forms? It would depend, so maybe. And that's how you proceed. Repair household items? You should see my household items. No thanks. Raise fish in a fish hatchery? No thanks. I like to eat fish, but not raise them. Conduct chemical experiments? No thanks. Study the movement of planets? Maybe. Compose or arrange music? That sounds like a lot of fun. Draw pictures? Yes. Give career guidance to people? Absolutely. Perform rehab therapy? I don't know. Operate a beauty salon, a barbershop? No. Manage a department within a large company? See how quickly I'm doing this? And this is how quickly you would do it. Install software across computers? No. Operate a calculator? Maybe. Next. Assemble electronic parts? No. Drive a truck? No. You see, it's just as important to know what you don't want to do as it is to know what you want to do. Do volunteer work? Sure. Teach children how to play sports? I'm kind of two left feet, so I'm going to say no. Start my own business? It would depend on what it is. Negotiate business contracts? Mm. Keep shipping and receiving records? No. Calculate the wages of employees? No. Test the quality of parts before shipment? No. Repair and install locks? I don't think so. Develop a better way to predict the weather? Maybe. Work in a biology lab? No. Write scripts for movies or TV shows? Sign me up. Perform jazz or tap dance? That would be nice, but I don't think so. Teach sign language to people who are deaf or hard of hearing? No thanks. Help conduct a group therapy session? Sure. Represent a client in a lawsuit? No. Market a new line of clothing? No thanks. Well, maybe. Inventory supplies using a handheld computer? No. Record rent payments? No. Set up and operate machines to make products? No. Put out forest fires? It sounds fun. Invent a replacement for sugar? No thanks. Do laboratory tests to identify diseases? No. Sing in a band? Boy, that would be fun. Edit movies? That would be fun too. Take care of children? I don't think so. Teach a high school class? It would depend on what it is, but sure. Sell merchandise at a department store? No. Manage a clothing store? No. Keep inventory records? No. Stamp and store? No. All right. So here we are. Well, I can review my answers if I want. I can view my unsure answers. No, I'm going to proceed. Now, here are the interest profiler results. I want you to take a look here. According to what I just answered, all top of mind stuff, what stands out the most is my artistic side of my personality. This is part of the Holland codes. RIASEC. John Holland was in the U.S. Army. He was in charge of putting platoons together, and he had a brainstorm one day. He thought to himself, as soldiers are matched with platoons, couldn't job seekers be matched with position types based on the personality type? And he was really onto something, because absolutely, our personality type certainly points toward position types. So according to ONET, I am looking for positions in this order that are artistic, social, and investigative. And being a webinar and workshop instructor, this fits. And I can find out more about each of those Holland codes by clicking on these links here. So creativity, work can be done without following a set of rules, even though I'm following a set of rules with the webinar. Social, teaching, giving advice, absolutely. Helping and being of service to people, love doing that. And then investigative, here. 3 personality types that are in demand for my line of work. So what I'm doing here for mass hire, this matches my personality type. In this order, for me, artistic, social, and investigative. And we can spend all day on this, really. But for now, from an assessment point of view, these codes are a further way to see if position types out there match your personality pattern. So now that I know my personality pattern and the types of positions I'm drawn to, the next step is deciding how much preparation I'd be willing to put in to qualify for that next position. And that's covered in job zones right here. So let's say I'm interested in a position that would have a high job preparation here. I'm going to go with that one, high job preparation. That would be job zone 4. What we're looking at are the occupations my next move is recommending I look into based on the choices I made in that questionnaire earlier and the preparation I'm willing to put into that job search. If I clicked on any of these position types right here, I would be taken to a profile screen like we saw earlier with air traffic controller and power distributor. We see the suns indicating a bright outlook for those positions. Also notice the puzzle pieces. The solid piece means more of a match based on my personality pattern, and the open piece means a slightly less match. As assessments go, I always recommend taking a few during the week since your mood can color the outcome. Recall repair kitchen cabinets was the first thing it asked me about, right? The first activity. And I said, absolutely no. However, let's say it was a Monday and I had spent the whole previous weekend building kitchen cabinets in my house and doing a fantastic job of it. Perhaps the score that I gave that skill would have been higher. That's the reason why it's important to do a few of these a week. What I want to do now is go back to my next move. And as you can see, there are other searches that we can check out just to drill down even further, but I'll leave those to you to explore further, just a little teaser for the rest of this robust site. For now, I want to jump to our last section of the webinar today, My Skills, My Future. And here we are. This is another internet arm of the U.S. Department of Labor. It's connected to ONET and My Next Move, but the interface, as you can see here, is a little different. Because the idea here is transition, applying the transferable skills from a past or current job to a new one. Now, earlier, I mentioned that the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem laid off a sizable amount of their workforce during the pandemic. So let's say I was working at the Peabody Essex Museum as an events manager. I can type that right in here. Now, I could check the details about that specific occupation, wages, positions close to me, here under Select a Career. But if I want to see what positions I could bridge into from an events manager, I would click Find My Career Matches. So let's go with that. We see that My Skills, My Future chose meeting, convention, and event planners based on what I indicated, events manager. Now, I think that's a good match, but if you didn't, you can click this drop down right here, and this menu comes up here. So you can choose something that you deem closer. But personally, I think meeting, convention, and event planners is a good match to my former position as an events manager, so I'm going to stick with that. Now from here, what I can do is customize my options a little bit. I can click on narrow your results. And let's say I do not want another position that has physical strength as a component. And I don't want to work outside. No outdoor work. Then I would click show results. And as you can see, it's already telling me that some results have been excluded based upon what I did with those results, based upon narrowing those results. But before we can actually see those results, we've got two more factors to consider here: your home location and how far you'd be willing to commute one way. So let's say I went with Cambridge. Within 25 miles. And I'm going to press go. Now here's what we've got. First, on the left, we've got the position types that I could qualify for. Bridge positions that you can consider if you've been an events manager. We can click the occupation title to drill down further into the position itself, what that position entails. Or we can check out this next column here for current job listings and a listing of businesses that employ the occupation that we selected. Next column over, the third column, we've got the salary ranges, actually hourly is selected now, we can switch that to annual. The last row, we've got the education requirements for each position types, along with links for training opportunities. Now, before we can check one of these positions out, I want to call your attention to one more thing on the left here. You see here where it says compare skills? A pivotal part of an assessment is comparing what you've done with what you're interested in. And compare skills serves as a great starting off point for that. So let's do it with administrative service managers here. Pardon me. So I'm going to click compare skills. And we have a side-by-side comparison. So salary, it's actually a step up from being an events manager going to an administrative services manager. Similar skills and knowledge, English language, service orientation, and so on. Personnel and human resources, going from low to medium. Administration and management, and administrative. Same level of training, but there's also more training that you can click on for administrative service managers. No licensure found, some certifications as well. So now I have more knowledge about this proposed career transition. So I'm going to go back now to this screen. Let's say I'm done with researching. I'm done with comparing, and I want to go with Administrative Services Manager. I would click right here. And here's what we've got. This is more information about that position type. I'm seeing keywords. I'm seeing what I can put into my resume, what I can put into my cover letter, what I can talk about during the interview, what I can talk about during a targeted networking that has to do with administrative service managers. I can also click on Find Businesses, like I indicated before, but let's take a look at job listings. And I'm going to click from new to old. Now, I'm recording this session on December 20th, a time when most people think that no one is hiring. But as we can see here, just yesterday, these positions were posted. Look at all the positions that were posted for December 19th. And I assure you, not all the positions are going to be federal contractor positions. That's just what we're seeing here. So could I do some research on some of these position types? Yes. Could I do some research on the companies? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we just conducted a job search based upon what we did before. That listing of bridge jobs, we investigated and we see that they're hiring during a time of the year when most people believe that organizations are not hiring. And we're only looking at one source here. We're looking at National Labor Exchange. We can change that source for ZipRecruiter numbers as well and get even more options that way. I'm going to stop sharing my web browser and jump back to our PowerPoint. Welcome back to the PowerPoint. And folks, remember that a self-assessment is designed to set realistic goals. It outlines our strengths and skill gaps, and overall, it points us to other industries, other organizations, quite possibly other position types that still call for the skills that we have and the environments that bring out our best. I invite you to join us for future sessions. You can go to masshiremncareers.com/events. Once there, you can access our calendar of workshops, and if you need assistance, we've provided instructions for you as well. On behalf of all of us here at Mass Hire Metro North, I want to thank you very much for watching. You can stay tuned for more. The home page of our website is at the lower right-hand bottom of the screen now, www.masshiremncareers.com. Our resource page has links to some great sites out there. It also links to our YouTube channel, which has a number of our job search and technology webinars pre-recorded, one of which is Career Assessment Focus on ONET Part 1. I invite you to watch that one as well. On screen, you can see a shot taken from the contact page of our website. please feel free to contact us for assistance. Until then, I wish you maximum luck on your job search.